Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Deac2Deac. On this episode, I had a chance to sit down with Wake Forest basketball legend, Tracy Connor-Riddick. Tracy and I had a chance to talk about her journey to Wake Forest, her legendary career at Wake, as well as the groundbreaking research and medical technology that she's currently working on, and much, much more. Take a listen. Don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast. And as always, go Deacs. From the beginning.
Okay.
So where you originally from?
So I'm from a small town called Landis, North Carolina. So now tell me where you're from and what your North Carolina geography is, and I'll tell you if I can place Landis on the map for you.
Oh, I'm North Carolina all the way. So I'm from Laurinburg, North Carolina, which is it's about southeast of Winston, about an hour and a half south of Fayetteville. Sits on that North Carolina, South Carolina border. So I know North Carolina really well.
So I was going to tell you, it's crazy. I know exactly where Laurinburg is because going to Myrtle Beach, you have to drive through it. You have to slow down. That's one of those speed traps.
Oh, so, that's how you do my hometown. You call it the speed trap. That's how you label it. But go ahead. Let's hear about Landis.
So Landis is also about an hour south of Winston-Salem, just below Salisbury, but before Kannapolis on 85.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to say anything about Landis. I'm pretty sure there's some wonderful people from Landis.
China Grove. That's my.
So, what was it like for you growing up in Landis, North Carolina?
Small town, small field. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew my parents. A lot of community. I didn't really realize Landis was small until we went to the big city of Charlotte. That was the big city for us. So yeah. I actually enjoyed it there. I enjoyed growing up there. It was interesting that my actual true community and neighborhood was 20 houses, and I'm doing my hands like this because it's still there. 20 houses, all in a little square, and it was an all-Black community, which was mind-blowing that even existed. So talk about true community. All the neighbors knew each other, meal trains, sympathy cards, birthdays, all of that stuff was really, really cool. So it was a very small niche in Landis. I think all 20 families were all the Black people in Landis, but we all had each other.
So how did you get into sports being in such a small town with small community?
Yeah, so my dad actually played basketball at Central in Durham.
Oh, wow. Go Eagles.
I know. He only went one semester because back then he had to come home and work on the farm, right? So he was the talent. So he truly had the talent. And then I have an older sister who also played basketball. And then, the younger sibling wants to be the older sibling. And I went to her YMCA basketball practices or whatever. And, oh, Kevin, I forgot to tell you, I was really tall. I was really tall. So every time I went to the gym, for my older sister, they thought that I was the older sibling because I was so much taller. And so her coach kind of put a ball in my hand, and from there, that's how it started.
Now, was basketball your only sport that you played?
Kevin, you set me up for some greatness here. You set me up for greatness. In high school, I think my senior year, I think I ended up doing 5 sports. So
why did you play 5 sports? I want to hear this. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was the trainer for the football team, and I ran cross country. So I did 2 things in the fall. And then I played basketball, ran track, and I did softball.
Wow.
It's so that's the multi-sport athlete, huh?
That's a lot. That's a lot. Like, what was it? Was it just this drive to be in this competitive environment? What was it that made you want to continue to play these multiple sports?
Yeah, I think A, I didn't know how to say no.
Okay.
B, I was good. and see, I didn't really know there was an option to come home after school and do nothing.
Oh, okay. Your parents were like mine. Okay. I see. Yeah.
That was an
Okay.
option. It's kind of like when I was a senior in high school, I didn't know it was an option to not go to college. I was just dumbfounded that people were saying they were going to work, because I was like, how is that even an option?
Yeah. So with that, you're talking about college. When did you know that you were good enough to play at the college level? Like, what was that moment like?
Yeah, so my AAU team, we won 3 national championships. We all played together, stayed together, won 3 national championships. And that was also back in the day where there weren't 50 AAU teams in the state of North Carolina. There were like 6. I mean, we had girls on my team that would drive 2 hours to practice on the weekend. So we were really good. And when we won it at 13, we won it at 13, 15, and 16. When we won it at 13, that's when our coach was talking about scholarships, going to college, playing at the next level. And on my team, our 5 starters were all D1 players. We all ended up being D1 players. So I knew really early. So 13 is about, 7th, 8th grade. And that's when I knew we as a team had something special, and I knew that myself, I was something special. Right. I don't know that I knew, but I thought we did great things together. Yeah.
Well, what was it about Wake that stood out in the recruiting process for you? Because you had options, you great player, great pedigree, had things around you. So what was it about Wake that stood out in that recruiting process?
Yeah. So, my final 5 choices, Wake Forest is an oddball, doesn't even fit. So it was Stanford, it was Duke. I was looking at Clemson. I was looking at Virginia and Wake. So what did it though was, again, you heard me talk about my dad, and he knew he had something special. He knew I was something special. And Wake Forest was the closest ACC school to our house, to our home. So every Saturday or Sunday, when there was an ACC game, when Wake Forest played someone, we went. It didn't matter if we were going to see Wake or Duke or Virginia, or these powerhouses that were coming in. Every weekend during basketball season, Saturday or Sunday game, we were going to Wake Forest. Similarly, I went to basketball camp at Wake Forest. It's the closest one. And so I had gone to basketball camp at Wake Forest since the 9th grade. So I really thought that I was family. I thought that that's where I was supposed to go. I knew everything. I knew where the cafeteria was. I knew where the dorms were. By the time I was driving myself there. It was home. I really thought I was going to go to Duke. I went to Duke, and I was just disillusioned, because Duke is really 2 campuses. I don't know how familiar you are with Duke, but I was like, yeah, it's really 2 campuses, and they were talking about riding buses from one side to the other. And now you're talking to this small country girl that's like, why do I need to get on a bus? Why can't you just drive your
Yeah.
car? It just didn't feel right. Went to Clemson, similarly, just didn't feel right. Virginia was nice. They had the Burge twins back then, so I knew that I wasn't going to play immediately. There was another great recruit in North Carolina, Wendy Palmer. Her name was Wendy Palmer. She was being heavily recruited by Virginia as well, so a lot of competition there. And so it just kind of came down to Wake Forest felt like home, and I knew I would get to play as a freshman. So on signing day, I truly did have 2 offer letters in my book bag. I had the Wake Forest one, and I had the Virginia one. And last minute, pulled out the Wake Forest one, and I thought, this is it.
Well, I'm glad you did, because what it eventually led to was you coming in and having an awesome freshman year. I mean, you won ACC Rookie of the Year, led the team in scoring. How did you handle that leadership role your freshman year coming in, especially from a small town. And now you're coming in and you're jumping into, high level, big time women's college basketball. What was that like?
It was fun, Kevin. It was a lot of fun. And just through your experience at Wake Forest, being the underdog, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
It was like, so obviously my freshman year was also the year that, North Carolina's women's team, I don't know if they won. Yeah, they won the title that year. So we're playing against the NCAA champions, if you think about it. And it was like, I don't know that I myself focused in on trying to be rookie of the year, right?
Yeah.
It was more like we worked hard, we practiced really hard, we were coached very well. It was, we're the underdogs. Go beat up these giants. Be David versus
Yeah.
Goliath, and just have fun. They don't expect you to win, so you may as well try to win.
Now, where did that attitude and approach to the game come from?
Again, my dad. I mean, and he's a great man. I can talk about him for days. People say I'm just like him, but I don't know if I have the grace that he has. But he was all about, if it's not fun, don't do it. Because it's rough. I don't think that I really zoomed in on what being a college athlete really meant, the time commitment that it took, the expectations that go along with it. And he would always say, if it's not fun, then don't do it. Yeah. I like making people laugh, not on a professional level, but just to make their spirit feel well. So going through all of the adversity at Wake, to answer your question, my dad always had that pleasant, have fun spirit. I always carried that pleasant, have fun spirit. I mean, even when things were super tense, we were in trouble for whatever, we're having to run for whatever, right? Like, there were some things that were uncomfortable about playing basketball. My team, they knew that at some point, at some moment, I was going to say or do something to break the ice, to make them laugh, and it was going to be okay, right? Because basketball truly is a small part of life. It's not our greater mission. It's not our biggest goal, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I learned that during college, during basketball, like I said, struggling through some adversity, I kind of really realized that bigger picture, like, as humans, the basketball is just the vehicle. But Kevin, yeah, I did some silly things, some silly things.
I want to hear about one of them. Do you mind sharing one of those silly things with Deacon Nation where you broke the ice?
So there could have possibly been, there may or may not have been a practice where we had to run with our hands up like this, because during the game, I guess, our hands were down, we weren't rebounding well, and blah, 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 blah. So we're running around the gym just like this, right?
Yeah.
Running. After a while, the mass of your arms is heavy, Kevin.
Yep.
And you can't hold them up that long. So of course, we're dropping our arms, and coach is just screaming at me, "Get them up, Trace, get them up." She's like, "You're not even using your arms." So I'm struggling, right? I'm like down to here struggling. And then all of a sudden I decide to break out in cartwheels for the rest of the time. So I'm doing like 2 or 3 cartwheels. Everybody is dying laughing. The coaches are even laughing. They're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I didn't have any more blood flow in my arms. I figured that was the quickest way to get the blood flow back and keep running." I mean, Iman McMillan was like on the ground laughing hysterically. I was like, yeah, that may have been, that was a good one. That was a great
one. I had not heard about that. Deacon Nation, we are the leading scorer was doing cartwheels, but
it's at the time.
So when you look back over your career, your time at Wake, how would you describe the conference at that time? You talked about North Carolina winning the national championship. I think was Marion Jones on that team. So
She was
what?
actually not on that team, but she
He
came a little
wasn't.
later.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and it was the competition at the time. So you had the North Carolinas with the Marion Joneses of the
Mhm.
world, who her arms were so long and she was so fast. If she stole the ball, like we weren't even crossing half court before we got to her. You had the Burge twins at Virginia, so they were 6'7". They would one in, one out for each other. It never ended. Maryland was good back at that time. Um, Clemson was good back at that time. It was pretty tough. But I do give our coaches credit because they assembled a team of guys. A team of our practice squad was 5 or 6 guys that would come in and bang with us and run with us and make us better. So that was the best we could do to try to um, correlate with what the conference looked like at the time.
Well, speaking of guys, during that same time, you were at Wake. You formed a friendship with Tim Duncan. How did the two of you meet, and what was that like?
Who?
Here
Who?
we go. Here we go. She said, if Tim is listening,
Yeah.
I want you to know that was Tracy's response to your name. Who? But go ahead.
He is great. He's awesome, and we are still friends to the day. Tim and Mark Lucas and Randolph Childress. I get to
Yeah.
be their little sister in life, which is a great place to be in. I try to make them laugh almost every day on our ridiculous group text. Um, but how did we meet? So I think your story and my story are a little different. So we're going with my version, which is the correct version. Um, when he came in as a freshman, so that was my sophomore year. I was one of the athletes that was kind of an ambassador to welcome the freshmen in and that sort of thing. So I recognized him pretty early, just based on height, and he was part of the men's basketball team. But I saw him over in Benson, and he just looked lost. And so I walked up to him and I was like, "So, hey, I'm Tracy. How can I help you?" Or whatever, whatever. Definitely answered his questions. And he just looked at me and I looked at him because we could not understand what we were saying. I am so country and he is so Caribbean that
And
the language barrier was terrible. But anyway, so I helped him figure out whatever it was, he needed on that day. Then soon after, I don't know, I'm sure you remember his story, but he got the chicken pox and he went MIA for a couple of weeks. Have you ever heard this part of his
I didn't
story?
know. I didn't. Deacon Nation, we're getting access to a really good story. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you get this kid from the island who comes over and gets exposed to all of our diseases, gets the chicken pox. And he's like quarantined at one of his professor's house. So I'm asking the guys team, like, where's Tim? Like, I hadn't seen him in a couple of days. They're like, oh, he's at one of Dr. Debbie Best's house. He's with Dr. Debbie Best. And so I thought, gosh, it must be horrible to be a freshman, new to Wake Forest. You're separated from your team, you're isolated. So I took him food to Dr. Best's house because I had the chicken pox when I was 5. I was like, why are we acting like this is so foreign? But now he thought it was the strangest thing. He was almost like, why are you bringing me food? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not trying to hit on you, or it's not even like that. I just thought it'd be nice for you to have some human company and emotion. And he was like, yeah, you're right. It is nice. So I dropped off food and we've been friends ever since.
So, who was your village at Wake Forest? Because as a student athlete, or just even as a college student, you need people around you to help you get through tough times as well as celebrate those successes. Who were some of your members of your village that helped you get through?
Great question. So obviously you always have your teammates. Nobody understands quite like your teammates. Um, I feel like I was also very close to the athletes in general, because there was another wonderful human being from Salisbury, North Carolina, Alexis Sockwell.
Yes. Yep.
So I've known Alexis since high school. I knew Rusty LaRue since high school.
Okay.
And I actually went to college with my best friend, Gretchen Hollifield, who was also on the
Okay.
team. So I had, knowing Alexis, that meant I knew the football team. Knowing Rusty, of course, I knew the basketball team, our team. We were all great. So I had my community of athletes, and that's so priceless, and you'll never get rid of your teammates. But then I also joined a sorority, so I'm a Delta. I joined the Delta Sigma Theta my sophomore year. I actually had gotten hurt, so I took a medical red shirt my sophomore year, and in my free time joined a sorority, which opened my eyes to a whole different level of community and sisterhood and friendship and support, and people who aren't necessarily into athletics, people who had dreams and aspirations way outside of basketball, really opened my eyes to a whole nother community. And then I also had a lot of leadership from Dr. Herman Urey, who
Dr. Urey,
Dr. Urey also kind of took me under his wing and would pull me away from campus and invite me out to his house, or several of us out to his house. And he kind of fulfilled that father role while I was at Wake Forest as well. So lots of good people in my network.
How important is it for student athletes to develop these relationships as well as have that time away from the game to help their development as college students? How important was that for you? And do you think that is still important for student athletes to have that time away from the game?
Again, that's a great question. The simplest answer is yes. The more you can pull a student athlete out of the athletic part of Wake Forest, I think the better life will be for them. I don't know that I realized how important that was until I was like a junior or senior, and just realizing political things that were going on at Wake Forest, or even going to convocation, or taking the infamous bus trip back to the real Wake Forest campus. Like, I don't know that I appreciated those things until I was a junior or senior. And Kevin, maybe you can tell me, I hope that things have changed a little bit more so that students are getting involved in, I know that time is limited, but like gospel choir was a great network for student athletes to connect with, or just other student organizations, BSA and different things. So I hope that athletes aren't just confounded in athletics now. I hope that they are doing everything, right? Like writing for the Gold Rush. I hope student athletes are doing other things, I guess I should say.
They are. It's just, again, that time is very hard, even in the off season. The time may be there, but your body has to rest. And then, when you're a student athlete, you don't get a chance to go home to visit family and friends. So you're looking for that first break to enjoy that time. And so that's why finding that balance is sort of a struggle. But the good thing is we put things in place to where a student athlete may not have time to get away. Okay, well, we're going to bring it to you. And so what we've learned during the quarantine is how to present things during Zoom. Everything doesn't have to be face to face. We can record interactions and share them digitally with the entire athletic department. And so that has really helped. And we're starting to bring on more staff that focus on professional development from day one, not just junior year or senior year. So there are a lot of things that are starting to shift and get better at Wake for current student athletes. But and I know the mental mindset is very important, because those resources can be there. But if you don't have the mindset to take advantage of them and use them to the fullest, then you're not really going to develop like you should. So we've had, again, we're increasing staff in certain areas to focus on professional development, but having that time to balance is tough. It's tough. Really tough.
And the other hard piece of that, or very challenging piece of that, is that these kids are 18 and 19 years old.
Yeah. I don't even want to think back to that, how I was. No. The older I get, the more I realize how less I knew during that time period. And I
Right.
began to forgive myself more for the dumb decisions that I made. And I
For
hear
sure.
people say, "Oh man, you did such a great thing graduating from Wake." And I'm like, you don't know what happened in between. So,
Well,
but
Kevin, like I mentioned to you, I went to college with my best friend. So I don't recommend that to any human because we're best friends and like minds on a Wednesday night. Oh, yeah, let's go out. Instead of the voice of reason being like, oh, no, you got that test tomorrow. You need to go to class. You got two 18-year-olds who are like, yeah, let's go out. That's a great idea.
and they meet up with two more 18-year-olds and a couple of 19-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you would say your favorite Deacon moment on the court and off the court, those moments where you really feel were big moments that were pivotal in your college career. Again, give us one moment on the court and off the court.
So, biggest moment on the court is an experience that you won't even connect with
Uh-oh.
because my freshman year, we actually played on campus in Reynolds Gym. That's where our home
Wow.
games were, most of them.
That
Most,
is right. That's
mhm,
right.
mhm. So
That's right.
we could hack it. I mean, the game I'm going to reference was NC State. It's like a high school. It's like a high school, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bleachers, not the comfy chairs at the
Yeah.
Joel. It's regular old wooden bleachers,
Yeah.
packed up the sides. They had people sitting on the baseline and people sitting when you come up the stairs on the wall. People were sitting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Fire marshal got called. So that's I want you to feel how
Wow.
yeah. So we played NC State. It was, kind of a double-double, 35 points, 22 rebounds. Great game. I don't necessarily remember a single basket I made, but I remember the crowd and everybody rooting for us, cheering for us. That energy. It was hot. It was packed. One of the greatest moments and memories ever at Wake Forest.
Now
Yeah.
you say you don't remember any of those baskets because you made a lot of them. You made a lot. There's a lot to choose from. I mean, how many double doubles did you have? It was what was it close to?
I was gonna say, I hope it's still in the record book somewhere. I wish I had one to reference,
It
but
wasn't was it 40 something or higher
possibly,
number? What
possibly.
it was a lot. So yeah, I see why you don't remember. I mean, you made so many. So what was that?
And
Go ahead.
and again, went to college and played ball with my best friend. So again, my best friend was one of those starting five on my AAU team. So she knew me very well. I mean, she was
Yeah.
an assist leader because she passed to me. We had a history, a years long history. Um, so there's that. So let me not take the credit to myself. Um, yeah, we really enjoyed playing with each other. So she made it easy for me.
Now, what's that Deacon moment off the court?
Um, Kevin, I will tell you that one of the reasons where and why you and I connected was through this Trailblazer Award.
Yeah.
And just to speak on that a little bit more, this was a recent award given to the first two Black or African American football players that played at Wake Forest. Although this was a more recent ceremony and award given to these players, it truly has left footprints on my heart, and I'm so proud of Wake Forest for getting it right and integrating our athletics and for being a part of that. So off the court, I'm still kind of in the present, being in awe, being respectful of not only these two African American players who decided to integrate athletics at Wake Forest, but Wake Forest in general for accepting them and deciding it was time to do the right thing and integrate our sport. It's been tremendous. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way, but that has been tremendous.
And you and I had a chance at that event to talk, and we shared that moment. We saw Coach Caldwell and Bob Grant just having a conversation and what that conversation was about. I caught up with Coach Caldwell a couple of weeks later at the ACC Legends event, and he talked about that moment. And he appreciated having that time with Bob Grant to have those conversations. In part, I felt very proud that here are these two people that changed the landscape of sports and contributed to changing the landscape of America, and they're at Wake Forest. That's where that happened. It's not anywhere else. And so it felt really good to be a part of giving that story more life and opening it up and hoping that people can gravitate to it. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And it's something we're going to continue to do. And so speaking of first, I want to ask you, what was it like when you got the call in 2014, 2015 to go into the Hall of Fame? And did you know at that moment you were the first Black woman to go into the Hall of Fame at Wake Forest?
So Kevin, that was 6 years ago now. So I have mixed emotions that I was the first African-American female inducted in, and that was 6 years ago, right? So it's kind of like, oh, wow, we've come a long way, but we have such a long way to go. Again, I give all respect, honor, and praise to Wake Forest because they treated my dad, my husband, and my children. I have three, they're teenagers now. I have three teenage boys. They treated them like royalty. They treated them like kings and princes and made them feel a part of the Wake Forest family. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's awesome. And ironically, you may not remember, but I was there because my teammate Fred Robbins, he went in the same night. So I was there to be able to see that. So I want to talk a little bit about life after Wake Forest. So sure. You graduate from undergrad from Wake. Did coaching or playing overseas or the pro ranks, did that ever enter your mind as a next step for you, or was the plan always medical school?
So obviously the WNBA wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
when I was in college, it wasn't the next step for women's basketball. Yes, there was professional leagues. I feel like I could have steered that way. But my heart wasn't necessarily in it because it wasn't my dream. It wasn't the end goal for, the women that play now at Wake Forest. I'm like, I want you to go to the league. I want you to make this a career. Like, I want you to love it through the ranks. So because it wasn't my end goal, when I graduated, I had applied to PA school at Wake Forest. So yes, I started freshman year thinking I was going to go to med school. Through some injuries and some adversity and all life, I got injured, I got hurt. I met a fantastic orthopedic PA, and the more time I spent with her, the more I thought, I want to do this. Like, I want to be effective at this level. So I had applied to PA school, got into PA school. My first year at PA school was also the first year of the WNBA. And so I had numerous calls and offers and come play for us, come play in Charlotte. The whole first year I did not. But then the second year, I took a leave of absence from PA school, and I went to play for the Utah Stars out in Salt Lake City.
Wow. What was that experience like?
It was an experience.
Okay.
So keep in mind, this was the second season of the WNBA. It was not as professional as it is now. I mean, it was still a business. They were still just trying to figure it out. It wasn't what it is today because it truly is a career and a job and a profession, and you have to be, college athletes. That's one level, but then on a professional level of the WNBA, it's a different thing. I played one season, didn't necessarily enjoy it. Yeah. Again, those injuries kind of kicked in, and I thought, gosh, what am I doing to my body? I actually finished up my season because PA school was kind of in transition. It wasn't time for me to go back yet. a friend of mine who was playing in Belgium called me and said, "Hey, can you finish up the season here? Our American player had just gotten hurt. I know you just finished up in the WNBA." So I did, went and played in Belgium for just a couple of months. That was pretty fun. Again, hanging out with a good friend in Belgium at 21 years old. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? And then I did come back and I finished up PA school at Wake Forest. So again, that Wake Forest name in medicine is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Did you feel that your time in undergraduate, the work that you did in undergraduate school, did that prepare you for med school?
It did. It did. I mean, there's no better answer. I was a biology major. Biology minor, health and exercise science major. So just a lot of that translated into what we were doing in PA school. Yeah.
So since then, you've been, I was told you're a part of doing some great research in what you're currently working on now. Do you mind sharing with Deacon Nation some of the things that you're doing some research on and working on now?
Yeah. So I do clinical research for a medical device company. Our timing couldn't be better because the company I work for is called Lung Pacer. And we have a device we're trying to prove to the FDA that we can help patients on mechanical ventilators get off the ventilator faster. How necessary and needed is that in this crazy world of COVID? Yeah, so we kind of stimulate the diaphragm that forces people to breathe. So basically, we're giving a little bit of electricity to the diaphragm, which then makes people breathe on their own, strengthens the diaphragm. And in theory, and our data is really good, but in theory, this gets people off ventilators faster. So we're in our clinical trial right now. Once we get to a certain number of patients, we'll submit that to the FDA. And yeah, we're working to change the game of the ICU. I mean, I'm here in Colorado. Unfortunately, our COVID numbers are spiking right now. I'm in these ICUs and I see them doubling up patients. I'm like, this is terrible. Like our country the world, right, is in crisis with ICU patients. So hopefully we're working with this company is making a difference.
How does it feel to be a part of such groundbreaking research? I mean, you're talking about, getting a person off of a ventilator earlier possible. I mean, that's groundbreaking. How does it feel to be a part of that?
Kevin, I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. This is actually the third medical device that I've worked with that has been new, groundbreaking, game-changing. I've been in I've been in research for 10 years. I've probably been in heart failure for 15 years. I've seen some different devices do some incredible things. But when this particular one was presented to me, I mean, it gave me goosebumps and chills on my arms because I thought the company's great, the technology's great, and this is really going to change lives. So I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be right where I am. Yeah.
So I also want to talk to you about the Tracy Connor Award back home. I do my homework. Come on now. I do my homework. What is that like to have an award named after you to go to the Female Athlete of the Year?
In Rowan County.
In Rowan
County. Again, it gives me pause. Because when the award committee came to me and my family and said, "We want to do this for you," it makes you feel immortal. But it's also like, of all the people on the planet, why would you choose me? And they flipped that around and they said, all that you've done for women's athletics and sports throughout all your years and community, we want to honor you with this. So Kevin, it's really cool.
And it's not, and what's interesting, it's not just the best female basketball player. It is the athlete of the in a sense the best of the best, and to have your name and your legacy to be a symbol of that, of being a part of the best of the best. And when you look back over your life and you're working with this groundbreaking research and medical technology and the leadership role you played early on in life and playing at Wake, is that something that you see yourself as being uh, a leader in these big moments, having these life-changing opportunities?
It's incredible, right? But I also feel like it's karma and good energy, right? I
Yeah,
feel like the energy that we put out there comes back to us. And so it's always amazing to meet these female athletes when we give the award. If usually I don't go home for it anymore, so sometimes my dad will give it for me, but I always try to give them a phone call just to encourage them to be better than I was. Right, like I told you, I played
yeah,
5 sports my senior year. I
yeah.
had a career at Wake Forest, and I'm like, be better. I want you to do more. Like you have more opportunity. You have a platform. Um, I just encourage them to be better. So it's fun.
That's all. That's awesome. So, this year, Wake Forest is celebrating and honoring 50 years of women's intercollegiate athletics.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be a part of that legacy at the collegiate level?
Yeah, I feel old, Kevin. Thanks for asking. Let me sip on my tea. The old lady sip on my tea. 50 years
So,
just means we're getting older.
you caught me slipping on that one. You caught me on that one.
It's absolutely tremendous. Um, some of the stories that they're telling from way, way, way back at the
Yeah,
beginning. Some of the things these women had to endure and accomplish. And then,
yeah,
if you really want to twist it, being female and minority, you're
yeah,
like, wow, that's like a double whammy. And you
yeah,
still made it and overcame and accomplished things that nobody ever thought was possible. It's kind of like I said earlier, we still have a long way to go, but we've come so far. Um, I love that the ACC is celebrating and honoring the 50 years. It warms my heart that there's so much history there for women in
hmm.
sports. Yeah.
I had a chance to sit down and talk to Coach Diane Daly, and she
Pioneer
talked.
of her
Yeah,
own time, right?
she talked about some of the things that she went through and some of the changes that she made happen. And um, again, going to speaking to what you're saying, is just hearing those stories is just such wonderful history and a legacy. And I'm looking forward to many more years of great female student athletes that come through Wake Forest and do legendary things. One last question I want to ask you is, who should I talk to next? Who would you like to see as a guest on the Deac2Deac podcast to share their story?
Have you talked to Randolph Childress?
Not yet.
There
Not
you
yet.
go.
So you
There's
think
my pick.
Randolph. So you think Randolph. So Deacon Nation, you've heard it. Uh, we want to hear the story of Randolph Childress and have him on. And I think
Please do.
that's a great choice.
Please do.
Now you got to help me out with that as well. You got to help me make that
Absolutely.
happen. And I'm
Absolutely.
and so, Tracy, it has been awesome having the chance to sit down and to hear your story and all the things that you've been able to do, but also what you are part of after your time at Wake. Um, this groundbreaking research, and that you've been a part of three other medical devices and technologies that have just made changes in health, which is the most important thing. What advice would you give, particularly current student athletes that
Sure.
are faced with a lot of options? What advice would you give them in terms of making it through from beginning to end, finishing off this journey of balancing athletics and academics? What advice would you give?
We're going deep for the last question. I'm with you, Kevin. I can play the game. Um, Try everything once, the good things twice, do it all. Don't just live in your athletic bubble. Meet people outside of athletics, have conversations, eat foods you would not normally try. Um, Actually, another thought just popped in my head. I did an interview for the 50-year celebration of women in athletics, and um, one of the questions that the young lady asked me was, what was my most memorable class at Wake Forest? And I told her I actually took one of the not one, two of the Japanese culture and history classes. Opened my eyes to a whole different group of people that I wouldn't have normally encountered had I not taken those classes. So, I challenge student athletes to do it all, do things differently. Don't just follow the beaten path. If you like anthropology, be the best anthropologist there is. If you like journalism, be the best journalism there is. Basketball is the vehicle, it's the avenue that'll take you there. It'll take you all over the world. I tell my own children that your sport or your talent will take you all over the world. But dare to be different, dare to do something different. Kevin, I can't thank you enough for bringing me in to your show, Deac2Deac, and being a part of your show. Just looking at your background compared to mine, I need to change a few things up. Need to get my degree on the wall right here.
This had nothing to do with me. This was nothing to do with me. This was my wife saying, you need to do something. My idea was just a plain wall. And I was told I was not going to embarrass her. So,
you know what? I support her 1,000%. I remember meeting her a couple weeks ago. I support all
I'm going to embarrass you? Like, really? So, but it's been a pleasure talking with you and hearing your story. And just to be a living legend and to have you be able to be in a position where you're continuing this work and can show what Wake Forest alums are doing to contribute to society. It's just awesome. So again, we're going to work on Randolph and get him on here.
I can't wait.
I can't wait.
He's another spirit that buys into laughter. So just get ready. Just get ready.
That's going to be interesting.